Hello, today's video will be on complementary and supplementary angles. To begin, complementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So if you see all of angle BAD, that angle adds up to 90 degrees. So if we add the smaller angle BAC and CAD, those two angles would be complementary because they add up to 90. Supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So if you take this angle 60 and this angle 120, they would equal 180, which is supplementary. Now let's try some problems with it. Angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. Find the value of x, measure of angle 1, and measure of angle 2. So we know measure of angle 1 equals 5x, measure of angle 2 equals x minus 6. To actually go in and solve for this problem, you would say measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 equals 180 because they are supplementary from the problem. So 5x plus x minus 6 equals 180. Now we combine like terms on the left side of the equal sign to get 6x minus 6 equals 180. To cancel out a minus 6, you add 6 to both sides. 6x equals 186. And to finish it off, you divide by 6. So x equals 31. With that said, we take that 31 and we plug it in to measure of angle 1. So 5 times 31 will equal to 155. And to check to see if we did it right, we take a 31 and plug it into x minus 6. 31 minus 6 equals 25. And we know that 155 minus 25, of course, equals 180. So we've double checked our work, and it looks like we're good to go. On this next problem, it tells you the measure of angle AXB equals 88 degrees. Take a second, pause the video, and see if you can fill in these other three missing angles. We know from earlier that we learned that vertical angles are congruent. Vertical angles are formed when you have two lines that cross. The opposite side will be congruent to itself. So 88 here, the opposite side of 88 is angle YXZ, which will also be 88 degrees. We also learned that two angles that form a straight line are called a linear pair, and they add up to 180. So if you already know that this is 88, 180 minus 88 equals 92 degrees. And because this is vertical to this, this will be 92 degrees. So measure of angle BXZ equals 92 degrees. Measure angle YXZ equals 88 degrees. Here's another problem where we're going to involve factoring, of course, because we see a y squared. Once again, take a second, pause the video. This is a more complicated problem. Try it out, see if you understand the concept, and then come back and check your work with me. For our geometry setup, we know that angles ACD and DCB are complementary, so they're going to equal to 90. So I can say measure of angle ACD plus measure of angle DCB equals 90 degrees. ACD is y squared, DCB is 3y plus 72, and then of course the 90. We must get this in standard form first, so we take 90 away from both sides. So you get y squared plus 3y minus 18 equals 0. Now we use the t-chart to factor. The last term is negative 18, the middle term is 3. Factors of negative 18, we can try negative 9 and 2, but that gives me negative 7. We could try negative 6 and 3, that gives me negative 3, so we're close. So let's try 6 and negative 3 to get positive 3. So we know the factoring will be y plus 6, y minus 3. So you set each of these equal to 0, and you get y equals negative 6, y equals positive 3. Now we have to determine if either of these work or if both of them work. So let's start with a negative 6. If we plug in negative 6 for ACD, and this should be measure of angle ACD right here, this should be a measure of angle DCB right here. If we plug in negative 6 for y squared, we get 36, because negative 6 squared is 36. Now we do it here, we get negative 18 plus 72, which equals 54. Both those answers gave me a positive angle, which is a possibility. So negative 6 works as an answer. Now let's go ahead and try 3. 3 squared is 9, which is a possibility. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 72 equals 81, which also works. So both 6 and 3 work. So measure of ACD equals 36 degrees or 9 degrees. You can do either one. and they both work. And the measure of angle DCB is 54 degrees and 81 degrees. Well, hopefully you got that answer right. If you got it, you're on the right track when it comes to supplementary and complementary. Moving on to a word problem. Read the problem, give it a try, check your algebra setup, and then try to solve it algebraically and see how you do with it. Go ahead and pause the video and see what happens. So two angles are complementary. That means measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 will equal 90. One angle, so I can say measure of angle 1, because I don't know what that is yet, is, well, is means equal in math. 6 more than 3 times its complement. So 6 more means plus 6. 3 times means 3 times the other angle, which I'll say that's x. So I know measure of angle 2 is x. Measure of angle 1 is 3x plus 6. So I substitute in 3x plus 6 plus x equals 90. 4x plus 6 equals 90. Subtract 6 from both sides. 4x equals 84. So one of the angles equals 21. If you plug the other angle in, you get 63 plus 6, which equals 69 for the other angle. So you can say measure of angle 2 equals, let's see, if we stuck with x, that's going to be just 21. The measure of angle 1 will be what we found as 69 degrees. Let's not forget the degree signs. Linear pairs we talked about the other day, these are two adjacent angles. In other words, they share a ray and a vertex whose non-common sides are opposite rays. So this side and this side are non-common and they form opposite rays. These angles, of course, are supplementary and equal 180. Vertical angles are two angles whose sides are opposite rays. If two angles are vertical angles, they are congruent. So 1 and 2 are across from each other from two intersecting lines, and 3 and 4 are across from each other, so they are congruent angles. If you take a look at this picture, it tells you CBA right here is 3x plus 9, and GBF is 5x plus 5. If you notice, these two angles are formed by two intersecting lines, and they're across from each other, making themselves vertical angles. So I can say measure of angle CBA equals measure of angle GBF. And then from there, it's just a simple matter of plug in your your equations, and solve. Subtract 3x, subtract 5, so x equals 2. So measure of angle HBG, HBG is not given in the problem. But if you notice, HBG and GBF form a 90-degree angle. So if I can figure out GBF, then I'm on my way to HBG. So let's figure out angle GBF here. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 5 is 15 degrees. And these have to add up to 90, so 90 minus 15 gives me 75 degrees. Okay, so hopefully, let's do one more problem and see how we do with it. There we go, this is a good problem. This tells you here measure of angle GCY is x squared minus 7. And measure of angle WCF is x plus 7. Take a second on your own, try this out, try to label what you know, and see if you can find how these two angles are related to each other. Okay, coming back now, if you notice, x squared minus 7 is not vertical to this angle. You might have been tempted to say they're vertical, but GCY is made of this line where WCF does not include this part of the line, so you can't say they're vertical. You might have also been tempted to say all of this adds up to 180, but the problem is we don't know this angle here. But you might have noticed, and this is correct if you did, WCF and YCZ are vertical angles. So if this is x plus 7, this will also be x plus 7. And then you would have noticed that these two angles are complementary, and they add up to 90. So x squared minus 7 plus x plus 7 equals 90. So we're going to run through this quickly. The 7's cancel. Minus 7 plus 7 goes away. And we get it in standard form. So we subtract 90. Factor it. X plus 10. X minus 9. So x equals negative 10. X equals 9. And negative 10 won't work because negative 10 plus 7 is negative 3. So only the 9 will work. So WCX is vertical to GCY. So if I plug in for GCY 9, 9 squared is 81, minus 7 is 74. And that is your correct answer. Well, hopefully you got there, and hopefully this video helped you out. Keep working on it and keep studying to see what you can do.